Well, hello there. Park Howell here. You know that customer testimonials on video are about the most persuasive way to share your brand story. But they're hard to get because who has the time and money to capture and produce all of that video? Well, today on The Business of Story, you'll learn how you can easily turn your community into your best brand storytellers, just like this one.
Hey, Park, Alan Reenstra here, and more than happy to come on and give a short testimonial about how the ABTs have really changed the way I communicate with my customers, my employees, and my sales channel as well, because I do a lot of sales channel training. And the whole concept of just taking the message that I need to get across and finding a way to simplify it, because people are busy. They don't have time to listen to a big, long, boring story. So what I love about the building blocks behind the ABT is the whole idea of agreement, contradiction, and consequence. Creating that statement of agreement and then finding something troublesome that contradicts the reality of the person I'm trying to communicate to, and then finding the consequence and even a resolution. It's a fantastic tool, and I see the results too. I'm getting a lot more responses back to my emails, to my LinkedIn posts on social media, and so on. So great job, and thanks for everything you did. By the way, Brand Bewitchery, I absolutely loved your book. So long.
Thanks, Alan Reenstra, International Sales Manager of SDT Ultrasound Solutions, for your story on the ABT and how it's revolutionized your communication. And thank you for sharing it on this new platform called Story Prompt. If you want to put the ABT to work for you, come on over to thebusinessofstory.com/ABT. I'd like to thank today's guests, my good friends Gavin and Martine Hammar, for bringing us an easier way to capture and share video testimonials of your work. But let's be clear, this is not a sponsored episode by Story Prompt. I just really admire the business and the family these two South Africans have built in London, England, starting with their very first venture, Sendible, which is our preferred social media storytelling platform at the Business of Story. Again, not a paid endorsement, just a great platform. And now they've given us their new venture in Story Prompt that I use in my in-person and virtual agile storytelling training and coaching mastery courses. I think you are going to love it.
As we've been saying, who better to tell the client story than the client themselves? So that's why we're trying to empower them to tell their stories and for the agency to kind of be involved in that process. So it's really helping in that regard. Even just a simple thing like employee advocacy. That's a great use case.
Gavin and Martine are the founders of the social media management SaaS company Sendible, like I mentioned earlier. But unlike a lot of tech entrepreneurs, they did not raise any outside capital and have proven that it is possible to beat the odds and build a successful, profitable company in a highly competitive market while remaining fully bootstrapped, just like they're doing now with Story Prompt. A lot of what helped Sendible stand out in this highly contested space is the fact that Gavin was able to help the company portray a more human face by focusing on, you guessed it, storytelling, which enabled them to outperform so many well-funded, faceless competitors. Sendible's incredible growth recently attracted the attention of Traject, a suite of best-in-class marketing technology companies which purchased Sendible in February 2021. Gavin shares his unique perspective on how to be truly memorable in a noisy world using storytelling on his podcast, Unscalable.fm. Earlier this year, Gavin and Martine opened up early access to their new product, Story Prompt. It's a video marketing platform that helps small businesses attract new customers by easily sourcing, capturing, and sharing the stories that earn their trust, such as video testimonials, case studies, and reviews. Gavin and Martine call it trust-based marketing, and they know it works because it's exactly what they use to build, sell, and enjoy a remarkable exit from Sendible. So here's how you can grow using trust-based marketing with Gavin and Martine Hammar on this special episode of The Business of Story. Gavin, Martine, welcome back to The Business of Story.
Thank you so much, Park. It's been a while since we last saw you.
Well, it's so great. You know what? The last time was Social Media Marketing World 2020, right as COVID was hitting. And we went out and had the most amazing breakfast that I heard, Martine, you said you guys even went back the next day and ordered those cinnamon French toasts that Michelle and I had the day before.
That's right. You know, the thing is that we always forget when we go to America about the portion sizes. So we find if something's good, we have to go back again because we always order incorrectly on the first time. So we each got a breakfast and then we saw your pancakes or whatever. I can't remember if it was French toast or pancakes. And
it was both actually, French toast and pancakes all put in one thing.
There we go. They're even better. Looked delicious, but we were too full. So then we went back the next day, shared a breakfast, and then shared the pancakes. And that worked well for us.
That was absolutely perfect. And that was back in the day when you two owned and were building Sendible, which is an amazing story in and of itself. You built this up. Well, you had it once upon a time, sold it, bought it back, as I understand it, sold it again, and now you are doing story prompts. So let's, for the listeners who don't know about your adventurous entrepreneurial background, Gavin, give us a little bit of an insight into you two and your work.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Cape Town, South Africa, and I moved to London back in 2005. I just planned to really travel for a year and then go back. But basically, throughout my life, I've always wanted to start my own company and kind of have the freedom to kind of do my own thing and kind of, kind of be in control of my own destiny. And it started from probably back in 2002, back in South Africa, during apartheid. So, I'm sure back then, actually before 2002, there was this apartheid system. And after apartheid was abolished, they introduced this quota system where anyone who was of color would get a job above anyone else who wasn't of color, basically. So I struggled to get a job after university, after finishing, and eventually I was able to get a job in this big retailer called Foschini. And I remember in the first week at Foschini, this company I joined, they asked us to write a letter to our future selves, saying where we saw ourselves in the next 10 years. And I wrote to myself this letter that I want to have my own company to be in control of my own destiny because I'd struggled for so long to find a job after graduating. And I think, that sparked the entrepreneurial journey or the spark in me. And then I worked for them for about 4 years. Then, as I said, I moved to London back in 2005. Worked for a few companies and eventually started Sendible. And I guess that idea came about from my dad who wanted to schedule email messages for his employees. So he ran a cleaning company in South Africa, wanted an easy way to schedule messages. And I built this basically a Windows app that lets you kind of plug in a date, plug in a message, plug in an email address, and then schedule these messages for your employees. And so I kind of built it like this and built it in a way that you could plug in any sort of external link. So it could be social media, could be SMS, could be anything. And I kept building this thing over time. And then back in 2008, I decided I wanted the world to try this free product. It was a free sort of social media scheduling tool, put it on the web, and a whole bunch of users signed up. So I had about 14,000 users signing up very quickly for this free tool. And then from there, it just kept on kind of growing and growing organically over time. Didn't raise any funding. And I think what you're talking about was I was working for a software consulting firm. At the time, I started Sendible, and I basically needed to kind of either quit my job or go all in on Sendible. And my employers back then said, if you give us half your company, you can keep your job and we'll kind of pay you to work for us, or otherwise goodbye. So I ended up working for them and running Sendible part-time. And I think after doing that for about kind of a few months, I decided that I needed to go all in on the company and kind of to make this thing a success, quit my job and buy back. I ended up giving away 10% of the company to them instead of the 50%. Buy back what I'd given to them, and then go all in on that. So I built Sendible from about 2010 as a full-time sort of job. I think from then I just kept on growing. It's a long story. I've kind of cut out a bunch of the pieces there, but so I guess fast forward to where we are now, and we had a bunch of offers in 2020 as the company grew over the last few years, and we were acquired back in 2021, early last year.
Can you give our listeners a quick overview of Sendible?
Yeah, so Sendible allows you to schedule and plan out your social media content. It's designed for sort of SMBs and agencies who are managing social media at scale. It's a tool that obviously saves you time, helps you manage and monitor your performance in social media. And yeah, so we have, well, we had, I guess, when I sold, we had around 6,500 customers on the platform, around 30,000 plus users, all using it just to really manage their social media publishing and kind of build their brands on social media.
And we use it here at Business of Story. We've used it for several years. And we have found Marissa, who handles all of our community outreach and social media, absolutely loves it. So it's been a very, very powerful program. By the way, I think a little munchkin just snuck in behind you, that same little munchkin you just sent to bed.
I sent it to bed about half an hour ago.
Does she want to say hello to the listeners?
She does, but we don't want her to. So
you don't want to encourage any more energy. Like, right now, I'm in Arizona. It's noon, and what is it, about 8 o'clock at night there in London?
On 8 p.m. here, yeah.
All right. Back to the story at hand. Well, Gavin, you had built this platform. You two built this platform, but storytelling became a big part of the coaching that you were doing on behalf of your customers. How did you get into that coaching, and what were some of the programs that you're sharing with your people to help them be more effective using storytelling on Sendible?
Yeah, so I guess it goes back to the Sendible founding story, or kind of how it grew over the last few years. So from 2010, we obviously, after I went full-time on Sendible and the product, we kept growing. But then fast forward about 6 years after that, in 2016, our growth stalled. So we tried ads, we tried outbound sales, cold emails. I hired this outbound sales team, and nothing was working for us. I guess in our space, in the SaaS, software as a service space, there were about 5,000 other tools in marketing technology at that time. And we were just one of those 5,000 tools. And in our space of social media management, there were about 250 plus tools, most with millions in funding. And we were a fully bootstrapped company with around 40 employees. So we didn't really stand a chance of kind of beating these competitors. And I'd been trying for so long to be like the others. I was always pretending to be a much bigger company. Even when it was just me and the company, I created a fake employee called Lisa, who people would email, and she would respond to all the support emails, all the sales inquiries. Even though it was just me, I created this fake employee to try appear to be bigger. I didn't think anyone would take a one-man company seriously. So we had actually become a faceless brand. So in 2016, even though we were kind of competing with the big boys like Hootsuite and Sprout Social, we were just kind of hiding behind this brand and almost ashamed of being smaller and bootstrapped. So I thought, what if we could be different? What if we could stand out for being who we really are and be true to our story? What if we could embrace being the smaller, more human, self-funded alternative? So I thought, how can we get this message across in a more human, authentic way that's more trustworthy, that kind of positions us alongside those competitors? So that's when I discovered storytelling. I went to Social Media Marketing World, I think back in 2018, I think it was the first time I went. And I discovered kind of the different tips and tricks of how to humanize your brand. And I think particularly from your talk at that conference back then, just the power of story. So I believed in it so much that I kind of made it Sendible's vision or mission to help our customers tell their stories on social media, which is like the best platform for storytelling. So I think it was all those things that kind of collided. The fact that we had to compete, we had to grow, we had stalled our growth in 2016, finding a way to stand out, learning about storytelling, and then kind of embracing different ways to humanize the brand back then.
What I think is so interesting about that is you said all of these 5,000 plus products and all the other companies out there vying for attention, and you were a small one-man shop with the exception of your AI Lisa. Yeah. It sounds like totally made up Lisa. Yeah. And, obviously didn't have the funding to be able to compete by just pushing out a whole ton of marketing. And so you went to storytelling just to share your authentic story. The one thing you don't got to pay for, you just got to go and find it. You've got to invest in the time and the resources and the frameworks and then share it out. And the one thing that I noticed, because I think that's when you and I first met, was 2018 over there. That's when I first learned about Sendible, and then we got together that year or two later, is that you and Martine really, and your people really started to model storytelling within Sendible. And you were teaching your own employees how to do it. And everything I saw online with you on LinkedIn and Facebook and other places, there was always a story attached to what was going on versus just selling a feature and a function and, trying to sell them logic and reason, where you say, no, this is a heartfelt, family-driven company, and storytelling's where it's at. You believed in it so much that you are now teaching your own customers. The clients that you had show up, how many of them first showed up thinking story was great and all right, here we go? And what percentage did you have to talk them into no, this stuff really, really works?
Yeah, I think when I first started Sendible, obviously social media was very different back then. It was more about how you can scale it, how you can kind of almost bulk publish your message. And then over time, I saw more of our customers moving towards brand, like understanding the importance of brand building, storytelling. So a lot of the ones who resonated with our new messaging really came from that background of being brand builders and obviously observing the change in social media. So yeah, most of them were on board with the change. There were some who were kind of, I would maybe term more of the spammers, who couldn't understand why you needed to tailor your message for different audiences and structure your content in a certain way that follows a framework. But they were obviously quickly realizing that the engagement was dropping off on social media, because storytelling is where it's at right now. Things like pushy sort of content doesn't work anymore. It's all about sharing behind the scenes, building trust in your audience. So I think it was more like, I wouldn't say it was our messaging, but more a change in the social media sort of trends that introduced our users understanding of where story came in. I think it was that plus a bunch of various things we did at Sendible, which I can tell you about, which actually helped to humanize our brand. So I can go into more detail on that shortly. I don't know if you want to add something, Martine.
No, I was just going to say that this thing with the AI, Lisa, as you mentioned, that, it's so interesting. I kind of feel like that aspect of our story is so interesting because we thought that was the right thing to do. So, in a world where you imagine you need to be a big company, you need to take funding, you need to have a lot of employees, it seemed ridiculous that we didn't have those things, and so therefore felt the need to make up this person. Then we realized, hey, we can still achieve the same results, we can still get customers despite that. So then we turned that into a story that we could all laugh about. And so we kind of spoke a lot about that on podcasts and things, and we kind of celebrate that we didn't, we made it up, it maybe was a mistake, but we're human and that's what we thought was right. And we've learned from that now. And now we kind of, even with Story Prompt, we don't pretend that we're bigger because we're not. And we can still give the same customer support and we can still, fix bugs quickly and whatever it is, we can still do it. And we kind of have learned to celebrate that because that's what makes us different and, unique.
Martine, now that you've got the microphone, tip it a little bit towards you because I'm going to interview you a little bit. There we go. All right. So let's go back a little bit. Okay. Here you are with Gavin, and you started this Sendible. He has, he doesn't have to, but his employer says, I want half your company and I'll keep paying you. And it sounds like you did a great job of negotiating down to just 10% of it. And then he comes home and he tells you, I'm going to quit, buy back that 10%, and we're going to do this full time.
Okay.
Where were you in all that picture?
The part of that he didn't include is the fact that it was me pushing him to do that. So the one thing is Gavin and I are always yin and yang, always, 100%. We've always been. So when he's nervous about something, I'm confident. When I'm nervous about something, he's the confident, whatever it is, we're always yin yang. So it was we had just got married. So it's not the time really to take risks, but it was actually me that was like, this is enough, because I had seen Gavin kind of go through back in the day where he was joined that company in South Africa. I was his girlfriend at the time. So I knew when he wrote that letter, I knew what he wanted. Then he started worked in one job and then another one and then another one, whatever it was. And he kept kind of the same trend kept happening, that he was like happy in the work, liked doing the work, but wanted his own company. And then, just go to another job and then he would say the same thing and then another one. So I was like, it's enough. Like, you want to start your own company, start your own company. It's fine. I was working at the time, I was teaching. So it was fine. If you're gonna do it, you do it. Like, stop talking about it now. Like if you're gonna go all in, now's the time.
I like that idea, the power of story, Gavin, where you wrote this 10-year fiction down the road, and here's what my life is going to look like. Martine, you came along for the ride. You looked at it and said, yeah, I can buy into that story, and here we go.
100%.
What are your two positions at Sendible if you're really working it as a husband-wife team?
So, well, I've got the mic, so I'll just go first. But okay, Gavin can say what he did. But I was more behind the scenes. So I was like the HR link. So we had a HR consultant, and then I did everything kind of people related. So I represented the team to HR when I needed to. I kind of looked after them. And when we started recruiting remotely, I was the one who set everything up for them, made sure the American contracts were set up and everything like that when we started kind of going more worldwide. Yeah, so for me, I was very much behind the scenes and involved with the people. So less with the actual product, but more with the people who represented the product, basically.
And you two totally bootstrapped Sendible. You had no venture capital funding whatsoever, correct? It came out of your own pockets.
Yeah, it was bootstrapped from the beginning. Martine joined about 6 years after I founded the company. So she was in a teaching role, as she said. And it made sense for her to come on board because I needed someone just to help with admin and like operations, that kind of thing. And she kind of just got me, she understood what I wanted for the company, my goals, the culture. So she could just run with things. So I could just like offload things to her and she could just help out. But I think what's interesting, people often ask us how we manage as a husband and a wife sort of relationship at work. And we actually never spoke to each other in the office. We would kind of stay completely separate. Martine wasn't in the exec team. She was like more in the operations, hands-on kind of thing. And we just didn't overlap at all. So it was like almost as if we weren't married at work. It was as if we're
probably
separated.
The safest way to go, huh?
Exactly. So it actually worked out really well because the employees really trusted her. They could go to her with their problems. She wouldn't always share things with me. She would just keep them kind of under wraps and confidential. And she became friends with the staff. So I was obviously the CEO. I couldn't become friendly with the employees as it is in a CEO role. But she was that person who kind of broke that sort of that ground between kind of the founders and the team. Yeah.
I was the one buying them tequilas at the bar when we used to go out.
There you go. You got to have, the Clara Barton, Red Cross worker there is what you took over that role. So in 2016, sales really dropped off. You're out there, you found storytelling, started building on that. And then 5 years later, you ended up, I guess it's 4 years later, 4 to 5 years later, you ended up selling. How many employees, or can you give us a sense of how big Sendible got from that point of 2016 of like point of no return to when you sold it?
So 2016 to 2018, the growth stalled, as I said. Then 2018, after I went to social media marketing world and discovered storytelling, to 2021, our growth was almost double. No, not doubling. Just growing by 50% a year until 2021 from 2018. So our growth suddenly kicked in. So we hired, I think, 13 employees during 2020, which was like the height of our growth. And in the middle of 2020, we had a bunch of offers to acquire us because of all the work we'd done before to humanize the brand, tell the story, kind of build that brand equity with our audience. So I would attribute all of that growth, the acquisition, everything to storytelling and building the brand.
And is that what has led to Story Prompt? I know you were working on Story Prompt pre-Sendible sale because you were kind enough to share a beta version with me.
Yeah.
And then you launched Story Prompt, 3-4 months ago?
So we launched it, about 2 or 3 months ago. That's right. So just to backtrack again. So during 2020, actually, if we go back to 2018, when I was trying to humanize the brand, one of the big things we did was we tried to show our faces wherever we could. So I wanted to use video everywhere back in 2018 because it's the best way to kind of tell a story. It's most visual, most engaging. So we did things like we created video newsletters, which was kind of quite unique for its time. So we'd have the team kind of presenting the news over video, and we'd share that out in an email. The other things we did, which was kind of a way to humanize the brand, is we would kind of surprise customers. So I'd hear about a customer meetup on Zoom and just arrive there as a CEO and surprise them to get them to tell stories and share their experiences with other, users or maybe prospects. We also analyzed every single touch point we had with customers and trying to find ways where they could kind of tell stories about the experience. So everything we did up to then was kind of just to build this word of mouth and kind of get us out there. And as you mentioned about the podcast and kind of going on LinkedIn, it was a big thing of mine to kind of get the stories heard from employees. So how could I kind of capture the stories as they happen at Sendible and get those kind of heard by our users? So all these things kind of added up to what became Story Prompt. And then in 2020, with COVID hitting, the whole team was remote. All our customers were remote. And we had this sort of strategy to be a more human brand, even more human, and kind of show our faces even more on social media and to our customers. So I wanted a way to easily capture video content from employees who are all over the world and distributed and working remotely, and from our happiest customers to build trust. So back then, there was no real tool that I could find. So I built this little product on the side just to capture the content, send it out, get the content back. And as we started using it, people said, how can I get access to this tool? It didn't have a website or a sign up link or anything. It was just me using it personally. Yeah. So basically after that, I realized like maybe I should work on this thing more full time, get this thing to market and help other people tell stories, just like we had humanized our brand. How can we help other SMBs kind of capture the stories from their employees, from their customers, and use those stories to kind of push their brand forward and help them grow? So it kind of was I guess a combination of 2018 storytelling plus 2020 with COVID, everyone being remote, and then trying to find a solution to capture those stories from our team and from customers.
You'd been through this before with the creation of Sendible, right? You were just trying to help your dad out to schedule these emails. And so you built a product out of necessity. And here you are now, you build up Sendible, and just right on that, the coattails of that, you build another product out of necessity. And you're like, well, let's sell Sendible, and now let's focus full-time on Story Prompt. So what exactly is Story Prompt?
Yeah, so I'm going to maybe touch on the problem first as to what it solves. So I've obviously, as I mentioned about Sendible, trying to grow the company, I observed during that time that kind of ads and kind of outbound sales wasn't really working for us. People can't really be lured into kind of a deal through sales pitches and clever ads. So yeah, I was looking for a kind of another way to do this. And obviously through the power of story, I wanted a way to kind of capture the stories from the people who your business has impacted, as a way to use those people as billboards for your brand. So I believe that obviously brands themselves can only be trusted as much as the people you've impacted can be. So, as you always preach about storytelling, from the brand's perspective, I think that's obviously very powerful. But I think the more powerful alternative is to get the voices heard of those who've actually been impacted by your company. That's the more convincing and trustworthy way of attracting customers to your business. So Story Prompt is a tool that helps you collect these stories from the people you've impacted as a business, your customers, your employees, your partners, whoever it is, and kind of collect them. And then it uses AI to produce compelling sort of branded stories from those people that you can then use on social media or on your website or in your email campaigns or email marketing, whatever it is that you're doing. You can take these stories and kind of put them throughout your marketing funnel as a way to improve your conversion rates, because people trust the stories of others more than they trust your own story. Yeah. Because it's them being impacted by your brand itself. So I wanted to create a tool that does this at scale. We know that it's very kind of difficult to create videos and edit them, and it's obviously cost prohibitive to do this at scale. If you want to capture a testimonial from a customer, previously you'd have to go on site, maybe hire your own videographer, pay them $500 for the day to go record the video. You'd have to schedule time with your customer to get that recorded. We want to make it kind of seamless and easy. So all you have to do is send a link to someone, and they can respond from wherever they're most comfortable, whether it be their phone, their laptop, their tablet. And we also give them the means to kind of add their own sort of teleprompter script. So when they're recording their response, they can make notes before and almost like just touch on the points. So it's very, very kind of comfortable for them to record a video. And then once you get the video back in your Story Prompt account, our AI producers will then kind of edit that video, cut out the awkward silences, and without having to spend any time on videographers or editors, you can then take the video and post it to wherever you want it to be. So that's the kind of what we do. And do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think when it comes to video, everybody overthinks it. You assume you need a big budget, you need a lot of time, it's going to be time consuming, it's going to cost a fortune. Everyone overthinks it has to be perfect. And I think that even if you consider the fact that more people are on Zoom now, you realize that actually it's okay to have, your dog behind you, or it's okay to have a child walk in like we had now, or whatever. Kind of everybody's tolerance has gone down. So I think that's what we really wanted to embrace, this kind of removing the stress out of video and kind of making it accessible to everybody at any time, and making it human, bringing that back into video. And that's really what we're trying to focus on, to stop overthinking video and stop spending so much money on it, and stop, That's why we created the AI thing, so that it can go out within 5 minutes, and you can just actually see the human behind the brands, or see the happiest customers at their happiest, and and use that to help your business grow.
And what Gavin had said earlier about the brand story, and what we always preach, and I know you're all about, is your story is not about what you make, but what you make happen. And who better to tell the stories about what you make happen than the people who you're actually making it happen for. So I've started using Story Prompt a little bit, as you know, and you guys have been so helpful in helping me get through it. And we've been weeding through a few bugs here and there, which is great, because that's what a startup does, right?
Yeah.
I use it where I will send it out. In fact, I just got one back from Pablo Gonzalez today, and I'm so excited because I can download it. I can use your AI to actually produce a video for me, or I kind of enjoy producing videos, so I can also download those raw files, clean them up, cut them up, and create my own testimonial videos out of it. That's what I like so much about Story Prompt. You can do it all for me, or I can get those raw files. In fact, let's hear Pablo's story as captured on his iPhone through Story Prompt. It was so easy.
The skill set of being able to use story in your communications became blatantly obvious to me like 4 years ago. And I set off on this journey to just get good at it, consuming a bunch of different books on story. But just about every book has this like long, complex cycle, like Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, that didn't really allow me to use it very practically on most of the things that I was doing. And that's why when I found the ABT and how simple it was and how applicable it was, it completely changed the game for me, right? I heard Park Howell on one of Christopher Lochhead's podcasts, and it immediately made sense to me. Read his book, Narrative Gym for Business, and immediately started practicing it. And I've been able to implement story now into social media posts, texts, emails, conversation, and it's just greatly increased my ability to communicate and persuade for the things that I really, really care about. And it's turned me into this guy that's always recommending the ABT and that book to everybody, which then feeds this like feedback loop of people asking me for advice on their ABT, which gets me practicing my ABT more and more often. And it's made me a great storyteller and persuader. So I couldn't recommend it any higher. It's a phenomenal framework, great book, and Park Howell's work is just something that I follow closely.
What Pablo said, because I sent him a note and I don't think I sent you his reply. Maybe I did. As I said, Story Prompt, new platform, working through it. How did it work for you to respond to my Story Prompt? Because I sent him a video of, would you give me a testimonial of the ABT? He had it come back to me like in 15 minutes. And he's just sitting there on his couch with his iPhone, because you can see it kind of moving around. And he gave me a brilliant 1 minute, 20-second testimonial that I can now go in and clean up. What I'm curious about, I haven't seen it happen yet, is your AI. Because I know, so if it starts taking out those awkward pauses or stumbles, how do you cover that edit, that video edit, or is it okay with just having that jump cut in there?
So it just does it at the start and the end of the video. So for now, there are ways we can make it smarter, but for now we just want to do it at the beginning. So if there's a delay before the person starts speaking, it'll cut out that silence at the beginning or at the end. But the other thing it does is it actually collects B-roll. So if you're collecting testimonials, you can optionally ask the respondents to supply B-roll. Now, B-roll would be kind of extra footage that's put in while the person's talking. So it might help to tell the story in a better way. So the AI will spot where in the dialogue or in that video to put that B-roll footage for you. So it creates for a more engaging experience, which is one way we're using AI. But yeah, hopefully once we get the B-roll, if we can get B-roll from the respondent, we can probably put those cuts in more easily so it's more seamless. But for now, it's only the beginning and the end of the videos.
And you can totally brand your videos, right? So I can upload a Business of Story logo and it can drop into a lower third, or give you my colors and all that. So what I get back from you is a fully branded video that I can run immediately, or I can, again, get those raw files and build it myself.
Exactly. Yeah, so when you set up your story prompt, you can actually decide what type of mood you want your video to have. So when you pick a mood, the AI producer will then apply the right music for that mood, and will help with some of the editing to suit that. The other thing is if your respondent supplies their name and title, it'll have that sort of caption appear below the video, so slide in and slide out. So there are other kind of cool things you can do with it. But something else other users are using it for is actually for kind of lead collection. So we have a feature where you can create kind of interactive videos. So you can have a video embedded in your website with a CTA on the video. So you might say, you might have a few options like, hey, I'm Park Howell, I'd love to coach you on storytelling. Click here to book a demo, or click here to respond to the video, for example. And they can go from the button on the video itself through to a demo form or whatever it is, or to your kind of consultation or Calendly link, whatever it is. So there are other ways to use it in an interactive way that takes your user on a journey. And of course, with storytelling, a similar thing where you can have multiple prompts to form a narrative. So you might want to kind of create a narrative around a testimonial where you start with a problem that they were facing before they found your solution, how they discovered you, and how they've changed since working with you. So you can kind of have different questions or different prompts set up, and they then get collated by the AI producer into one video with the question then answer. So there are various ways to use the automation.
And you can pick, you said, from different producers, which gives you a different look, different music, and so forth. How many different combinations do you have that you can kind of customize your own video?
So at the moment, we've got 3 producers with different moods, but that is something we might increase at some point. Yeah.
What are the moods?
Moods like inspiring or thought-provoking or I think funky. Yeah. so there's different kinds of moods that you want the video to have. I can't think off the top of my head what they are.
And then you also provide prompts, do you not? Some templates that people can use. So when the video goes out, you can be more assured of getting the kinds of sound bites and the kinds of testimonials or whatever you're looking for, because you are literally prompting your receiver of your prompt to tell their story in a particular way.
Yeah, so basically, we have a set of templates that are kind of best of practice, or kind of best practice formats for various things like testimonials, or maybe you want to do a story from your CEO. Maybe you want to collect a kind of a thought leadership kind of video. So we have a bunch of them all set up for you, ready to use with the scripts. So you can basically take those templates, replace the scripts with your own voice or questions talking to that person, and then obviously use that to produce your videos. The other use case for templates is actually if you've created a testimonial sort of story prompt or sequence, you can then save that for reuse in the future. So if you have, let's say, 10 clients you want to get a testimonial video from, you could save them as a template, which is how I do it now, and then kind of customize your intro video for each of those clients. So it's more personalized. So it just helps you kind of save your scripts, be able to record the prompts yourself. Because how we've noticed that kind of prompts work best is if you are recording yourself first and then sending a video of yourself to that respondent. Other tools we've seen, they have text. People don't feel comfortable reading text and responding on video. So our tool actually lets you record a video first with you saying the question, send it out and get a video back, because it's more like a human-to-human communication rather than a text-to-human communication.
I think basically like what you were saying with the editing with the AI and that you like editing yourself, we've kind of done the same thing with the templates. So you can make it as personal or use our templates as they are as much as you want. So basically what we've done is we've created the templates that are ready to go if you want to use them. So you don't have to, we've used stock images and things. So you can send them out as they are if you don't want to retake them, or you have the option to really personalize them. So that's something we wanted to make as to get you in as involved as you really want to be.
I love that. And now that I've got you back on the mic, Martine, I'm going to ask you about some early experiences your customers have had. And I'd like to share one with you that I've had. The way I am currently using Story Prompt is as you designed it, to go out and get testimonial videos in on my ABT work. But I'm also recommending it to my clients. So I will do these virtual training sessions on the ABT and the 5 primal elements of short story for big pack, and even the 10-step story cycle system. But I will have my attendees be practicing these. And in the past, they'll type up a note and send it to me, sharing me their ABTs and whatever. But I found it to be more fun is I send them to story prompts. And I said, all right, share a story about this or an ABT about that. They can just sit there, pop it in, get it to me. I can do some quick coaching on it. But even more importantly, we start building this story library of little story prompts. So we are not only educating and coaching them through the process, but we're using your tool to make it really easy for them to be able to capture that story. I don't know if that's a use case you all had considered, or maybe you're just not promoting it because maybe there's not enough of us out there doing it, but I find story prompt to be really helpful in that area.
Yeah. I mean, I think whenever we have calls with people, we kind of find so many use cases that we didn't even think of, like, for example, that. So we've spoken to a number of coaches, we've spoken to a number of agencies, so they're kind of using it to, let's say, get content from their clients. So, who, as we've been saying, who better to tell the client story than the client themselves? So that's why we're trying to empower them to tell their stories and for the agency to kind of be involved in that process. So it's really helping in that regard. We've also kind of, even just a simple thing like employee advocacy, that's a great use case. So for recruitment. So there's two kind of elements that people are using story prompt for in recruitment. The one is to kind of replace the cover letter stage. So the employee can sell themselves. So they could put something on their landing page, let's say, for the role, and say, hey, let us know why you think you're the right person for this role. So that's the prompt, and then the person's replying. And it's kind of like, firstly, you're seeing them, you're hearing how they speak and how they present themselves, and you're seeing if they're actually comfortable in front of video, in front of the camera, which, if that's something that's important to your company, you can see it right there and then. And then the other kind of side of recruitment is the employee advocacy. So kind of getting the employees to talk about the company, like they're the customers of the company, you know what I mean? So they're representing the company. And if they're happy, why wouldn't you want to work there? So, I mean, there are tons of use cases, and we're kind of learning new use cases pretty much every day.
Well, I find it's very easy to use, and you go to the platform, storyprompt.com. And by the way, this is not a sale. I'm not selling. You have not bought advertising on my show. I just am really a big believer in what you two have accomplished through Sendible and what you're doing now with Story Prompt. You go to the platform, you sign up, and I think you've got an offer right now. If you sign up, you get your first 25 videos for free. So you get a chance to run with it and use it. You're right there. You push record. Pablo, hi, Pablo, this is Park. Tell me about your experience with the ABT. When you're done, you push stop. Do you like the video? Do you not like it? I like it. And then it takes not very long. It goes to your servers. It creates the video, then shoots you a link with a thumbnail. And the thing I like about it too is they can watch that video, as I understand it, right in their email. It doesn't take them somewhere else, which I think is an obstacle for people. If it's taking them off that video, they can watch it right there in the email. And then I just say, hey, push record and record your prompt back. Boom. I mean, they push record, hold up their iPhone or whatever, and they record it. Do you like it? Yes. Send. And I get a reply on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. We kind of went out of our way to kind of make it, firstly, really clear, and easy to use, good UX, that type of thing. But it's also, we wanted to make it accessible to everybody. So you don't need any kind of massive qualification or any understanding of any of that, of video editing or anything, to be able to use it. So it was really, really important. So we really tried to make it that anybody can use it at any time on any device, and it's particularly easy for the person to respond to. So whatever is even considered remotely complicated is for the kind of person who signs up, but even that is so easy, and then the whole process is so quick too, as you said.
I think just from speaking to SMBs and kind of agencies, they all kind of struggle with the time elements of creating videos. They're all want to create videos. They know how effective video is for engagement. You can drive 80% higher conversions on your website if you have videos as opposed to text. But they just struggle with kind of how to do it, how to collect the video content, how to edit it. So our goal here is really to make it super simple, that anyone can use the product, can collect videos from anyone that they're impacting, and then embed them on their website and their emails or in their marketing campaigns. just to remove that friction point, when it comes to video creation. And I guess, if you're up against, if you're in a very competitive space, you have loads of competitors. I think if you're the one who has video on your website or using video in your marketing, you're going to stand out more than your competitors who are just using text. So that's our goal, really, just to help SMBs and kind of agencies collect the videos at scale more easily. But our mission, really, our longer term vision, is to help kind of businesses give communities a voice. So like you were saying about the coaching element, we're actually moving towards a place where you can have a space with your clients and kind of coach them asynchronously using video. So imagine taking Story Prompt as we have it now, but have more of a two-way communication channel. So when you get a video back, you can respond and coach them on that video. That's like the next version that's coming out, hopefully by the end of the summer, which is it's really exciting.
So how big is your team? You, Martine, and Lisa? Or have you grown yet?
So right now...
Lisa didn't transition with us to the new company.
Yeah, so we're actually embracing being small. Yeah. So I think, after scaling Sendible to the size it was, I was moving further away from things I love doing, like building products and, marketing. I had a big team that was doing it for me. So right now, the goal here is to be as small and lean as possible and outsource where we can. And, if it grows, maybe we'll hire staff. But for now, we're enjoying the freedom, kind of the actual creative freedom of being able to do things ourselves, experiment, push the product in different directions, speak to customers without the added sort of obstacles of having a bigger team. But we'll see. Maybe it'll grow over time. But for now, we're happy just being small and growing it ourselves. I
actually just wanted to say, I said that I encouraged Gavin to go all in on Sendible, but I was also kind of, I would like to think I influenced him quite a bit with the acquisition too, because like you were saying now, when he had such a big team, when he was like umming and ahhing if he should do it and, if we should go through with it. And I said to him, right, come Monday morning, would you rather walk into a 4-story building where everybody works for Sendible, which is awesome, amazing? Would you rather walk in there and be the CEO, or would you rather be sitting in Starbucks with your headphones on coding? And he said, I'd rather be coding. I was like, well, there we go. Most people wouldn't choose that option, but that's what he chose because, after all, he is an entrepreneur by nature. So
it's a weird thing going back to coding because I hadn't coded in about 6 years. Yeah. So, as I said, I was coding during COVID, during 2020, getting back into it. So it's quite a strange thing going from a CEO with a big executive team to going back to like at the ground level, kind of building products and stuff. So it's been interesting.
Well, what I love about it, whenever I have a challenge or I'm trying to figure out, even on my own end, I'm doing something wrong, you two are so accessible. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
That's actually something I was doing at Sendible too. Even when we had 6,500 customers, every single new paying user I would reach out to on LinkedIn and kind of reach out to them, ask them how they're doing, how they're finding the product. I try to be the more human CEO wherever I could to try to stand out and be more memorable. And I think from that, kind of just reaching out every single week, they would then kind of spread the word about the product and about the team. So I think humans are underrated. Obviously we have AI in the product, but I think the goal here is to kind of elevate the human voice through our product, give people a voice, help them be heard. And I think being human, being authentic, being personable is a big thing in business.
Hey, I've got one more story prompt I just have to share with you from a longtime client, Jennifer Russo, who you can hear the background. I believe she's actually doing this in a Starbucks, again, off of her iPhone, and sharing her story about storytelling in her career.
Hey Park, it's Jen. I am making this video to tell you about the impact of the ABT on my career and, quite frankly, the way I speak. It is probably the most powerful communications tool in my toolbox. The A, setting the scene, the B, the tension, the T, the resolution. It sets me up for success every single time. It never gets tired because it is the most effective way of setting people up for what I want to communicate and having it resonate. I just can't say enough, Park, about it. So thanks.
We're going to send people to storyprompt.com. Is there anywhere else that you'd like to send them to learn more about you and your team or what you're doing?
Yeah, so I have a podcast called Unscalable.fm, where I interview other sort of tech founders. I try to look for founders who've built their businesses in an unscalable way. So like I was saying now about reaching out to customers every week, it's not really scalable for a CEO to do that, but it helps you stand out. So I find people who can share different tactics, different ways of positioning their brands in a way that makes them memorable and more human. And yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn at Gavin Hammar or on Twitter at Gavin Hammar as well.
I was just going to say, we've also created a playbook on Story Prompt where we've got some storytelling tips, some techniques, comparisons with different, like why to have video testimonials and how they work, and just different things that you can learn about and kind of see.
Storytelling frameworks.
Storytelling frameworks.
Well, it's been an absolute delight having both of you here. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's late there and you got two munchkins you're trying to get tucked into bed.
I hope they're asleep now. They're supposed to be.
Yeah, they're supposed to be. I remember being that age. I was supposed to do a lot of things I didn't do. But really appreciate the time. And thank you so much for bringing this very cool platform product to market. I'm just starting to tinker with it and finding new ways to use it in really interesting ways. And I've got a lot of big customers now looking at it go, well, this is cool. I'm just trying to get so proficient on it that I can become your customer support for them. So if they have any questions for me, but you guys have done a really beautiful job of bringing a very eloquent, simple product to market that can have a really big impact, I believe. Well, thank you for that.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all for listening to this edition. Check it out, storyprompt.com. I never pitch anything this hard unless I really believe in it and the people behind it. And the Hammars are just amazing folks. And by the way, that's Hammar. For all of you Americans out there thinking it's ER, well, if you go looking for Gavin Hammar on LinkedIn. If you like what you heard here, certainly share it with your friends and colleagues. If you think you've got a place in your business where you are working on storytelling or just communications in general, and you're trying to find a way to be able to help coach and teach your people to do it and capture those lessons at the same time, capture their input, which, by the way, as they're telling you their stories, becomes phenomenal content, as Gavin was talking about earlier, because you're hearing the stories from people, be they colleagues, be they customers, be they the communities you serve that are sharing your authentic impact that you're making in the world. Because number one, as Gavin and Martine can attest, the first paradigm shift is in business and brand storytelling. Your story is never about you. It's about your audience. They are the center of the story. And number two, your story is never about what you make, but what you make happen. And in the case of Story Prompt, yeah, we talked a little bit about how you make this stuff, but I guarantee you they're not selling their platform for the technology and the coding that Gavin does at Starbucks with his earbuds in. They're talking about, am I right? Right?
Absolutely.
You are sharing the stories of the impact that you're making in the world. And Gavin, I'm going to ask you one last time to articulate, why are you doing this? It's more than just making it easy for people. What's the mission of Story Prompt?
Yeah, so as I said before, we want to help sort of give brands a voice through the stories they tell. So kind of help the brands elevate the stories from their communities, give those communities a voice to be heard, whether it be a charity or a non-profit organization. There's always stories there that are inspiring, that can help others. So our kind of vision is to really collect stories at scale and help brands do that effectively on video.
Yeah. And the way I look at it is these stories are beneath the earth, and it's our job to unearth them. And by the way, they're like gold. They're like little nuggets of gold in this gold mine. You got to go in and you got to dig them out, you polish them up, and then you share that gold with the world. Essentially, yours is a mining tool that people can use to go in, capture those stories, and then reveal them to the world. And in doing so, you are giving a lot of people a voice that goes well beyond just growing a brand, a voice that can really impact the world in so many different ways. It's so cool. So anyways, all right, I'm done here. We're done. We've got to let the Hammars go. And I'm going to let you go to remembering that the most potent story you'll ever tell on Story Prompt or anywhere else is the story you tell yourself. So make sure it's a great one. Thanks so much for listening.
Thanks, Park.
Thank you.